Hello everybody, thank you for joining. This is the weekly English shooting live stream. Of course, I will be your host Callum for this evening. I hope you are all fantastically well. For anybody new joining, welcome. Get involved. If you're watching this live, there is a chat. Don't be scared to have your opinions, your suggestions voiced. If you have any questions that you may have around firearms law, firearms, or anything really else, then please use that chat box to get involved. And also, if you agree or disagree with anything that I say, then let's talk about it. I'm all for opening up the discussion. Apologies last week for no stream. It has been a very busy year to say the least. Fortunately, in some ways the competition season is now dying down to some extent, and I will have a lot more time to get back to doing what I love, which is weekly live streaming and more videos. So yes, tonight's stream really it all centers around firearms licensing. This has been a consistent topic for a good couple of years now, and ultimately I think that it is coming to a head. There has been no official announcement or no official confirmation that things are going to change, but it absolutely has to. Not just from the stance point of not only are people not getting their licenses issued anymore, that we are nearing a collapse of firearms licensing completely here within the UK, but with everything else that is going on, what everybody else is saying from both sides and what everybody is doing, it is going to come to a point. And I think ultimately we are going to see in the not too distant future a complete overhaul of firearms licensing. It's needed for us shooters. It's needed for the police. The particulars of why and what is going to ultimately lead to that overhaul or reform or big change, that is, I think, the most interesting discussion. And I think there has to be shenanigans called on a lot of the excuses that we have repeatedly seen over the past 2 years of why the police suddenly can't do firearms licensing. Let's say pre-2020, firearms licensing was pretty much, compared to what it is now, was absolutely fine. Yes, you had some counties that would take a year to process your certificates. I don't think that's particularly acceptable, but that certainly seems a lot more acceptable than places like Cumbria that have completely stopped accepting applications for firearms licensing or for firearms licenses entirely. Things have got, over a fairly short period of time, a lot worse, and the excuses just aren't stacking up anymore. And I personally believe it sort of narrows it down to it being deliberate. And I don't think it's necessarily deliberate to put people at risk, or it's deliberate to not give out licenses, but I think this drive to a big change is very much deliberate. Look at what BASC has come out recently. We've covered this on the stream previously, but the report on firearms licensing. Not only is this a report, a comparison of firearms licensing departments across the UK and really the best metrics that we have ever seen in terms of their performance, but there is quite heavy opinion in this. You see things, the direct, I think it's on the main article for this, you are seeing suggestions of a complete overhaul. You are seeing suggestions of firearms licensing changing massively. So you seem to have, again, it's not all firearms licensing across the country, but it seems to be a growing group that for whatever reason can't or won't do their job, and they're flailing their arms up in the air saying we're backlogged, we don't have enough resource, we don't have enough time to do this job. And then you have BASC, which is, like it or not, the largest voice for firearms owners here in the UK, agreeing with it. So you have, you know, both sides of the argument at the highest level saying there needs to be change. The job that is being done is not good enough. And not only is it not good enough, there are massive consequences at stake here. And what sort of sparked this all for me was a interview that was put out on Field Sports Britain with a barrister, Nick Doherty. Now, I actually know Nick because he's represented me in the past and has acted for me in the past, and it's this firearms licensing crisis warning. Now, if you want to go and check out this video, then go and visit Field Sports Britain, although it's an unlisted video, which isn't particularly helpful, but it is certainly on their Facebook page. But some key points from this interview is, you know, he's not beating around the bush. You know, Nick has said categorically his belief is that this isn't a question of if we will get another Plymouth. It is a question of when. Like, you know, his exact words were, there will be more incidents if firearms licensing doesn't change. If they don't change in the job that they're currently doing, or it doesn't change in terms of a complete overhaul. Again, so you've got the largest shooting organisation in the UK calling for change. You've got firearms licensing, the police, the Felwig, the Home Office saying that the current firearms licensing isn't up to the job. They're not doing the job to protect the public, to prevent things like Plymouth. And now you have the legal professionals who are pretty much as independent as you're going to get. Certainly, you know, people like Mr. Nick Doherty, because he represents both sides. He represents both license holders and also the police and the Home Office. So, you know, they're fairly balanced and impartial people, and everyone is saying there needs to be change. Something needs to happen. And that sort of brings me on to the excuses, and they are excuses, and I think quite unfounded excuses that various firearms licensing departments are using at the moment to justify the level of service that they are giving or not giving. Obviously, the biggest one that we have had is COVID, and I had to go back and sort of refresh the timeline of all of this. But the first lockdown we had was in March 2020. By the end of sort of 21, that had sort of all passed. We were well back on track, no more lockdowns, still going strong. But in early 2022, firearms licensing departments were still quoting COVID as a reason of why they couldn't go and do home visits, why they still couldn't accept applications. Well, at the time, that didn't stack up. Now, you know, even for the firearms licensing departments, COVID has they've sort of really extracted every ounce of blame on COVID that they could, and they really can't get any more out of it. Now, again, something very interesting from this video with Mr. Doherty is that they're now switching back to the excuse of this new statutory guidance. Again, something that we've covered quite extensively here on the channel. Now, as a quick refresher, this statutory guidance for chief officers of police for firearms licensing, this is the new suitability guidance. Basically, what the police need to look for while giving out your certificates. You know, it's all about your suitability checks, assessing suitability, continuous assessment, record keeping. We saw some very scary inclusions within this suitability checks. You know, the fact that they can use your associations, people that you associate with, as your own, you know, level of suitability. Things like being able to use investigations against you, even if you go to court and are found not guilty of an alleged offence, that can still be used against you to refuse your certificates. Because again, the law works very differently when it comes to firearms here in the UK. You don't have the same requirement of burden of proof. Like with a conventional crime, you need to be proved, even for minor crime, minor, major, whatever. Something Paul would know quite a lot about. I know he's watching. I couldn't resist. I'm sorry, Paul. In joke there. Or I think you might know where that comes from a few weeks ago. But anyway, minor or major, definitely not major in Paul's case. You have to prove beyond all reasonable doubt that somebody is guilty, right? So, the comparison is used a lot with cars, right? Well, to have your license taken away, you need to be it needs to be proven beyond all reasonable doubt that you have committed these offences to lead to your license being revoked. That doesn't stand for firearms licensing. The same bar is not required. Suspicions can be used. Allegations, complaints can be used, and it becomes all very subjective. But the excuse now is that this guidance has supposedly added a lot more workload to the police. They have to look into people a lot more. They have to perform more checks. They have to tick more boxes, which is taking more time and more resources, which has slowed down the entire system. Where this excuse doesn't hold up, especially when you look at places like Hampshire, who, they're not necessarily the worst in the country at the moment, but they are fairly slow and I would say, as far to say, as inefficient at giving out certificates at the moment. Hampshire specifically adopted this statutory guidance long before it actually became a requirement. Furthermore, all of the police forces that are saying we weren't ready, we didn't have time, the first draft of this guidance was issued back in 2019. I think it was June or July 2019. It came into effect shortly after the Plymouth shooting in August 2021. So you're talking over 2 years there to prepare. So you would think, okay, the ones that have prepared, the ones that have integrated it gradually and without a massive shock to the system, they should be doing okay. But then you have places like Hampshire that have been doing this far longer, have been operating to this statutory guidance far longer than anybody else, and even they're saying, well, hang on, no, we can't do it. It's far too much work. But pre-COVID, you were operating to this guidance, and you didn't have the same issues then. So again, for that, it's all sort of separate segments. But one thing is what is actually causing this degradation in firearms licensing. Is there a genuine issue? If there is, then is that resolved by a complete overhaul, a new centralized firearms licensing, or going to private using companies like G4S? And before people scoff and say G4S, they couldn't organize a piss up in a brewery, the firearms licensing departments that have already gone private, have been privatized and are being run by G4S, are some of the most efficient within the country. So G4S seems to do very well when it comes to firearms licensing. So whether or not the reasoning is genuine or not, that's sort of a separate conversation. But regardless, we are heading towards, I think, a massive change. That also opens up the discussion of what is that change going to look like? Are we going to see privatized firearms licensing? Are we going to see firearms licensing removed from the police? Is it going to be a separate government body? Is it going to be a purely private organization that does it? Is it going to be a mix? Is it going to continue to be done on a county basis, or are we going to see it centralized? I think sort of all of the above, centralized and or privatization, or a complete overhaul of firearms licensing in some form, will naturally be more efficient, and in theory should lead to a better service and experience for license holders here within the UK. You should be able to get your certificates easier. They the police or whomever, the government, the Home Office, should be saving a shitload more money if they are more efficient, if it's streamlined and a more condensed firearms licensing. But the bigger question is, overall, is it going to be a plus? Is it going to be a net gain for the shooting community and for firearms license holders? Every single time there has been new legislation for the past, well, for the 10 years that I've been involved in shooting within the UK, there has never been a good bit of legislation. Every change we have seen has ultimately been for the worst. It may be initially, it may seem, or it may actually be a benefit to the community, but over time it seems to be a negative. You take this guidance, this statutory guidance, as a perfect example. On the face of it, more guidance for the police should be better. It should make things a lot more consistent across the UK. They should all be singing from the same hymn sheet. So what seemed to be quite positive to begin with has led, when you dig deeper, into discovering that actually it makes it easier for them to remove or refuse certificates. It gives more mechanism, certainly, for them to do it, and more justification to be able to do it. It makes it, even in some areas, far more subjective to be used against firearms owners. And it has presented this mammoth excuse of, we can no longer do the job. And again, what's at stake here is, it is ultimately public safety, but there are people's careers and livelihoods. If firearms licensing or firearms licensing departments can't do the bare minimum of keep up with renewals, then we see a collapse, because it's been deemed that 5 years, yes, we can talk, should it be 10, should it be 15, I even saw somebody say it should be a lifetime certificate. That's a completely different, separate conversation. But it has been deemed that the safe period in which you can leave somebody sort of unchecked, unassessed, is 5 years. Well, we are seeing people where their renewals still haven't been done after 6 years. We have some people that are approaching even 7 years without having their renewals. Well, that starts to become significantly past this safe time of 5 years, and I think this is ultimately what is ultimately, but a big part of, not solely, but a big part of why people like Nick Doherty are coming out and saying it will lead to more incidents. If there are people that are in possession of firearms, if let's just say it is 5 years and that we do need licensing and that it is effective and that it does prevent atrocities when implemented correctly, unlike in Devon and Cornwall. Let's just agree to disagree on that. You all know my stance on it. I'm actually a fairly big advocate of firearms licensing, specifically here within the UK. I think ultimately it does help us, and it does present some protection in some way. But again, that's another conversation. Let's just agree that is the status quo. That is what is going on. If we're seeing that completely ignored, and people go far beyond that 5 years, they are, without those checks, it's a potentially a ticking time bomb. The other element is the counties that are still issuing certificates, that are still doing renewals. If you take it at face value that this guidance is actually so hard to implement and takes a lot of time, are we going to see more firearms licensing departments cut corners, massive corners, like we saw in Devon and Cornwall? Again, that could be a big reason to why Nick has gone out there and say there will be more incidents if things don't change. In terms of the renewals, there was also a very interesting sort of statement from Nick, or I think an explanation of why we are seeing so many voluntary surrenders of firearms, or the requests. We've seen an increase of requests for people to voluntarily surrender their firearms for the purpose of review. Now, yes, you can put your tinfoil hats on and start saying it's a conspiracy purely to take away people's guns. But Nick does give, I think, quite a balanced look from the other side, which is, if you do have these firearms licensing either deliberately or otherwise not doing the job, or not able to do the job, and people are going far beyond this 5-year period, they are desperately trying to do everything. Let's just again assume that they are desperately trying to do everything possible to get on top of things. Well, they want to hit the pause button, and the best pause button they have is to ask people to voluntarily surrender their firearms and firearm certificates for the purpose of review. So it's like, okay, we don't, if we go to this person and ask them to voluntarily surrender and they do, that's the pause button on that application. That's another renewal that we don't have to do, and we can focus on maybe somebody that didn't voluntarily surrender. And if that is the case, and that's very much what Nick seems to think is the case, how utterly disgusting. It is not the firearms licensing, it's not the firearms owners or the license holders' fault that firearms licensing, for whatever reason, can't do the job that they are quite literally paid to do. And the last person, although it is always the first to be effective negatively, the last person that should ultimately suffer is the paying customer. How utterly mad is that? That's like, it's like going to it's like going to the DVLA and saying, I need to renew my license. We can't do that right now, and actually we don't want you driving around and until we've renewed your license, so we're going to take away that driving license. Oh yeah, and your car. He's like, well, no, but that's not my fault. I've come to you in the 5-year period and asked you to do the job that I'm going to pay you to do, and because you can't do it, not only are you not going to give me my renewal, you're going to spuriously accuse me of something. You're going to, this is what it implies, is that they are almost fabricating reasons, because they're not going to them. Nobody has been told, we want you to voluntarily surrender them because we don't have the resources at the moment, or we don't want to issue your renewal. That's not been said at all. They've been said, people have been told, there's been complaints made against you. Okay, well, by who? No, I can't tell you. About what? Well, I can't tell you. And all in all, as much as I love to try as much as possible to give people the benefit of the doubt, and to give firearms licensing and the police and the Home Office the benefit of the doubt, just some things aren't adding up here, right? You have quite respected professionals pretty much saying that they are, if you read between the lines, fabricating reasons to go and voluntarily, seize people's guns. Well, that's like, never mind about that being right or wrong. That's fraudulent, right? There's laws to prevent that, and that's what they are. That's the place that we have now. According to Nick, that's where we've reached. And then you see things, and funnily enough, Nick's partner is now my solicitor, Laura Salisbury. She recently, I think quite astonishingly, gave this advice, and this is in the Clay Pigeon Shooting Association, the CPSA's magazine, right? So this is the in-house counsel for a large shooting organisation. If you read, I've been through this with a fine-tooth comb previously on the stream, but pretty much if you read between the lines, don't cooperate. That is the message here. It's not explicitly said, but it doesn't take a genius to read through that and go, I'm at a significant disadvantage in complying. And also they happen to give, Laura gives you all of the tools in order to say not to comply in the best way. So you have legal professionals pretty much, between the lines telling you that you shouldn't comply because it's certainly not in your best interest. You have other legal professionals telling you that because firearms licensing can't do the job, they are pretty much fabricating reasons to ask you to voluntarily surrender your guns. You have BASC releasing damning reports on the performance of firearms licensing and suggesting that they need to be overhauled, it needs to be centralized, it needs to be privatized, and you have the police coming out and saying we can't do this job for XY reason. Don't think it's a far shout to say that we are going to see big changes here. And I don't think, based on prior experiences, what history would dictate is that it really isn't going to be good for us. We may be able to get firearms licenses approved within a matter of weeks. It may end up capping the cost to it. We may end up with 10-year certificates. But when they start messing around with the legislation, when they start messing around with the guidance, and they start overhauling anything to do with firearms, it's all the stuff that they have the opportunity to include. And that is what is always going to bite us in the arse. It's going to be further guidance on limits of firearms. What is the deemed a too large a quantity for somebody to hold, this, that, and the other, combined with all the other attacks that we're seeing on our sport, like this potential lead ban. Don't forget, guys, I'm going to put the link in now before I forget to do it. We still have the lead consultation. So far, the only organisation that has even really given any sort of official stance on it is the NSRA. And funnily enough, these guys are probably going to be least affected by this, because usually small bore ranges are indoors, right? But the NRA, no guidance or help. BASC, still no guidance or help on how to fill this out. They've all gone very, very quiet. So this is yet another angle of attack on the sport. We've had the firearm safety consultation. Again, despite the opportunities that sort of gave to really penalise this sport and make things a hell of a lot harder, it wasn't fully capitalised on by the police. And as we all know, that was not down to the shooting community, because we didn't even bother to respond to it in generally speaking. But again, out of those, I'm not saying I necessarily disagree with the changes, but they're certainly not making things easier. We've got this hovering over our heads about ammunition, not lead, but in terms of what's going to be restricted now in ammunition, how much more difficulty is that going to add to shooting or reloading here within the UK? So it just seems at every single angle they're either currently changing it, or there are just calls for a massive overhaul. And we're going to have to see, where that leads and where the first official announcements of that are. Personally, I think it does need to be overhauled in the right way. It needs to be centralized in the right way, and it certainly needs to be independent in the right way. That I don't have any issue with at all. I've said for years that our firearms licensing guidance and even our firearms laws need a complete overhaul. In some ways, they're just not fit for purpose. There are so many weird oddities of history in there that are just not relevant to modern times, and it, call them loopholes, call them, shortcuts, whatever. There is an abundance of, obscure areas of the law that even the professionals have difficulties understanding or interpreting. So how is effectively a just bog standard civil servant doing an admin role meant to, who's not a legal professional, how are they meant to make heads nor tails of it? Process, thank you, appreciate it. Where can I contact you with a suggested response that can be sent to your followers, written by my local club? Awesome. You can send that. I'd very much appreciate that, because the lead, the consultation is something that I wanted to sit down and sort of do my own video on. So you can email me, and anybody can, about anything any questions you may have, any concerns, if you need help with anything, feel free. It's not an exclusive email, but it's EnglishShooting@gmail.com. That's the best way to get through to me. I do say that failing that, you can always reach me through Magload, but it's always better to, if it's something about English shooting, please do try and use the English Shooting email. You can reach me through Facebook as well, although again, email is always the best way to reach me. It gets harder and harder to manage all the multitude of different channels that people try to communicate with each other. Like WhatsApp, I just try to ignore into obscurity. But yeah, I did see a couple of questions. Haran 007, have you had any update regarding my license? Have you had anything from your solicitor? Before I answer that, we've got like 160, 170 people watching, 57 likes. If you're watching and you don't like it, why are you watching? So I can only assume that all of you are loving what you're seeing and hearing. So hit that like button. It does really help. Just a quick reminder, it's free. Really, it is. Honestly, don't believe what people tell you. It's free. Hit it. It makes a big difference with the analytics. It helps us reach more people. It helps us to attract more people into the sport of shooting and into firearms ownership. Makes a big difference to the channel, and it can make a big difference to the shooting community as well. And if you want to go one step further and you want to subscribe, please do. Again, absolutely free. We won't charge you a penny. Hit that subscribe. We try to do this every single week amongst other videos. And also, down to your requests, this unfortunately isn't free, but there is the English Shooting membership where you have access to exclusive emojis within chat, and you also get a nice little membership badge to show off your support of the channel. So if you do want to join the team, or what did I call it? Only ES fans. That's a long-running joke. Then there's a join button somewhere on your screen, and you can do that. That would be much appreciated. Again, we are all about promoting firearms ownership, making it as easy to understand our laws and processes as possible, and we want to reach as many people in doing that. So you can like, you can share, you can join, or you can just sit there and just enjoy the show. But you can make a small difference. That doesn't cost you a penny. That's better. See, I knew you'd just forgotten. No, really appreciate that, guys. Keep them coming. Oh yeah, Paul is here. Only in a minor capacity though. For those, I'll explain that joke again. It definitely needs to be explained, doesn't it, Paul? So as I'm sure some of you are aware, a couple of weeks ago we were out in Florida for the Pan American Handgun Championship. It's a sort of intercontinental level 4 IPSC handgun match. Yes, us Brits can shoot handguns. Some better than others, I will admit. But we certainly didn't embarrass ourselves and had a brilliant time. The whole major minor joke, much to the trauma-inducing memories of Paul. Basically, within IPSC, you have major power factor or minor power factor. It's sort of just changes the points you get for a target. Obviously, if you have a major power factor is basically the weight in the bullet and the speed. And if you're shooting major, there's more recoil. Therefore, it's harder to shoot quickly, so you get more points for the target. Paul was meant to be shooting in shooting major. Unfortunately, his ammo didn't meet power factor, and he got bumped down to minor. So, in major, basically you can get away with dropping a bit of accuracy because you get more points on the target. With minor, you have to be more accurate. So, Paul spent the majority of the match shooting with a major mindset. I need to find out that he had a minor mind. And yes, the joke has legs, and it will not be forgotten anytime soon. But yes, somebody did ask an update for my certificates. Yeah, no update really. Unfortunately, I keep telling you, you don't necessarily need to ask. You'll know. it's not something I'm going to sit there and go, oh shit, sorry guys. my certificates came through. I've had them for a few weeks now. You'll know it will be out straight away. I may even do. Well, it depends. Well, the certificates are going to come to my house, so I will be home. It most likely will be in an evening when I come back to them. So I should. If you ever see a spontaneous live stream, tune in. It's either very good or very bad. Basically, if I get the letter saying no, spontaneous live stream. If I get the certificates, spontaneous live streams. So, you know, tune in to find out. Leave a little bit of suspense there. Hampshire are now going, do we want Callum on a spontaneous live stream while opening up a rejection letter? Anyway, so no, there's been no progress yet. I'm still waiting. You know, they're not processing applications. I've had my interview. I was told that it would be 2 months. That was 3-4 months ago now. They're just, firearms licensing just aren't doing the job. It's not specific to Hampshire. It is a countrywide thing. I did find out that I think it's not officially been said, but for whatever reason, the head of Hampshire Firearms has sort of stepped back for a little bit. Or certainly that was the impression. He took, I think, nearly a month out at the last out of office response that I was aware of. And language like, the sort of the standing head of Hampshire Firearms. So it does sound like, for whatever reason, the head has, there's been a change of head, be that temporarily or permanently. So that's going to cause a little bit of disruption. But apart from that, I really don't know why they can't just either way, yes or no. Just, either I see you in court or I get on happily with my life and my career, and again, it's like I'm under an RFD. Like, what is going to give me, what is giving me firearms certificates going to do that I can't already do, apart from being able to come and stick guns back in the safe at home, so I can start doing videos at home with guns again. That would be a lot more convenient, because there's still no studio at Magload. It's on the cards though. Yeah. So yeah, no updates, just more waiting. But I'm certainly not alone on that. Blakey 1790. I thought the local constable gave you your license. No. So what you might be getting confused on there is, so for those of you that don't know, you have your firearm certificate, your FAC, you have your shotgun certificate, your SGC. Those are personal certificates, so you can have those for you can have them for sort of work purposes. So some pest controllers that do it professionally will do that under an SGC or an FAC, but predominantly it's for the hobbyists. It's for the I say amateurs, but it's for the sport of shooting, be that hunting or be that target sports. An RFD, a registered firearms dealer, is what you need to have to run a firearms business. If you are going to be selling firearms, modifying firearms, or using sort of firearms in a commercial sense, then you need to have a registered firearms dealer certificate in order to be able to do that, which my business partner in Magload, Connors, has. His company has that, and obviously his company is linked with Magload and trades under the Magload name, so that RFD can be used for Magload purposes. And then with RFDs, with registered firearms dealers, they have what they call servants. So an RFD servant is appointed by the holder of the RFD to be able to perform functions of the RFD, and has the same sort of authority as an RFD. So with an RFD, you're not necessarily limited in how many guns you can buy or store. You can sell and buy as many as you want. You can go and shoot any Section 1, and this is Section 1 and Section 2. Obviously, you have Section 5 dealers, but for an RFD, you can buy, shoot, test, use, modify, sell, trade, whatever, for the purpose of that business, any Section 2 or Section 1 firearm or shotgun. So yes, to clarify that, I am on the I'm on. So there's this, again, this is sort of harks back to sort of when there was a physical record, but there is a register of, it's a registered firearms dealer. There is a register, and servants are added to that register. So obviously they then lawfully have the same authority as a normal firearms dealer. They become registered, and I am on the register as a servant. So that's in some way, some people have said, oh, I got my licenses back. It's not the same thing. It allows me to, for the purposes of Magload and Connors' company, it allows me to perform sort of actions and stuff for the RFD, and that can be sort of anything. That can be, we had somebody come down and they wanted some work done to the gun, and I was the only person there. Well, I need to be a servant in order to take possession of that gun, to sign it in onto the register, to put it into the armory. So we're not always there. Well, not all of us aren't always there. So there's stuff like that, transporting guns, selling guns. We have customers that want fully raced out guns, or when they come to buy them, or when they come to actually pick them up. Again, it would be a shitter to say, oh, sorry, Connors isn't here or Paul isn't here, you can't come and pick it up. So yeah, anyway, I think you get the point. But I still don't have sort of personal certificates. So yeah, that's still ongoing, annoyingly. Paul, don't mention the mags. What mags? Honestly, have no idea what you're talking about. Daniel had my safe inspection yesterday after moving 18 months ago. He said he had 150 more to go this month. Fuck's sake. It has. It's just got to the point of ridiculousness. And it's not, well, that is public safety. What if you hadn't, and of all people it would be you, Daniel. Love you, big kisses, Big Daddy Dan. What if you hadn't installed that safe correctly, right? And you didn't realize that, you thought it was fine, and you were broken into, and that safe was taken, right? Because it's taken 18 months for them to come out. Like, it's serious failings across the board. I've never had the same FEO twice. I did sort of go through that period when I first I had an FEO for same FEO for my shotgun application, same FEO from 6 months later for my firearms certificate application, and then for my variation I had a different FEO, and then at one point the first FEO turned up with another FEO to discuss specific matters. So I sort of felt a little bit pillar to post at one point, and my current FEO is different once again, but he's brand new, fresh, and actually, like, I think from my impression, like, the model FEO, seriously, he's like the FEO that every applicant would want, mainly because ex-firearms officer, he's a certificate holder himself, avid shooter, so he knows what he's talking about. So refreshing. There's nothing worse than getting into a discussion with an FEO and they just don't know the law, and it happens so regularly. Paul IPSC, I still beat you though. I wouldn't be able to say you were shooting in a different division. It's not comparable. For those of you that didn't know, Paul was shooting standard division, and I was shooting production. So it's really comparing apples and oranges. It's not really, you had effectively better equipment. You should do better than I did. So we never know. We never shot the same division. So we just don't know how we would have fared actually on a level playing field. Which brings me to this weekend. No, there is another big point on this whole firearms licensing thing, which all I can say initially is good. So this was actually a few weeks ago that I sort of missed. Somebody posted it in the Facebook group, and there is an English Shooting Facebook group if you want it. Don't get confused that with a Facebook page. Two different logos. The group has an over and under shotgun being opened with shells ejecting. The English Shooting Facebook page has the English Shooting logo. I have been meaning to maybe make it more obvious which is the group. Maybe just putting group next to it would help. Anyway, so there's an English Shooting Facebook group and a Facebook page. Do feel free to go and drop likes and join and all that. The group, does have regular discussions in there and questions and like various interesting posts, current affairs, news, stuff like that. And if there is anything that I think is newsworthy or noteworthy, I always post that on the Facebook page. So if you want like the latest of everything and you don't want to wait for the stream or for a video to come out, then go on to the Facebook page and give that a like and a follow. So this article. So as we know, a lot of the issues that we are seeing across the board were sparked by the shooting in Plymouth. Devon and Cornwall police under criminal investigation after mass shooting in Plymouth, specifically firearms licensing. And this links back to another article, and this was December 21, getting on nearly a year ago. Plymouth shooting police serve third misconduct notice over the license. So the police force responsible for giving him back his shotgun and license before he killed 5 people in Plymouth is now the subject of a criminal investigation. The Independent Office for Police Conduct, IOPC, has today... See, I thought they didn't get involved in firearms licensing. Funny that. Has today revealed Devon and Cornwall Police's firearms licensing unit is being investigated over potential health and safety breaches. That's just going over... Yeah, he had, obviously he had his licenses taken away. They were returned to him 34 days before the shooting. 3 members of Devon and Cornwall police staff have since been served gross misconduct notices as a part of the IOPC's investigation. Following a pre-inquest review hearing in Plymouth today, the watchdog has revealed a criminal investigation is now underway into Devon and Cornwall police. A spokeswoman said, "We can confirm we have begun an investigation into Devon and Cornwall Police for potential breaches of health and safety legislation in the running of its firearms licensing unit prior to the mass shooting in Plymouth in August last year. At the conclusion of our investigation into the force's granting of a shotgun certificate that later returned to him, we sought specialist legal advice and have since decided to conduct a criminal investigation. Our investigation will examine whether the Office of the Chief Constable of Devon and Cornwall Police, as corporation sole, may have committed any offences contrary to the Health and Safety at Work Act. We have advised the force, the Police and Crime Commissioner, the coroner, and the families of our decision." So, yeah, that's nothing small, right? And that really, if it was in any doubt, which I don't think there was, they were grossly, there was gross negligence there, right? Or gross misconduct, right? They, as supportive as I am for our firearms licensing system and licensed departments, when they're actually doing the job that they're paid to do, it doesn't work if people aren't following the guidelines. It doesn't work if people aren't doing their job. Again, bringing us on to this big issue of other firearms licensing departments aren't able to do their jobs at the moment. So, this is what happens when they don't do their job. So something has to change to not let this happen again. And yes, I absolutely, the people that didn't, the people that gave those certificates back, that okayed it, that missed all of the ridiculously obvious, not even warning signs. They weren't warning signs. They were reasons, quite obvious reasons why that person should have had certificates. The people responsible in that decision should be held accountable to the people that lost their lives. This, and some way I can have some sympathy on firearms licensing departments, right? They have a very tough job, right? It is very hard to assess somebody's suitability, right? But they do have a tick sheet, right? They do have now guidance to follow. Even if they follow the guidance, they cross every T, dot every I, tick every single box. If somebody goes and commits this, okay, very, very different case, because there were clear warning signs that were clearly ignored. But somebody that meets the bar, passes the test, and suddenly does a 180 and goes and commits a sort of a horrific act, the firearms licensing department will always be held accountable. So in your job as an FEO, as a job as a firearms licensing, you sort of it's lose-lose, isn't it? You do your job correctly, you still get the blame. You do your job incorrectly, you still get the blame. I think in the latter, it's obviously deserved. So I can get it. It's not exactly I get it. It's not a easy job, or even it's not devoid of responsibility. But people choose to do it. Like, nobody is forced to be an FEO, or nobody is forced to work for firearms licensing. So it's like, that's the responsibility of the job. If you don't like it, you can leave. And if you're not going to do the job correctly, as they didn't in Devon and Cornwall, like with anything, you need to be held accountable and responsible for the outcome. It's like the DVLA issuing a license to somebody that's known to be blind. Like, there's only one way that's going to end, right? Callum being cheap? What? What are you talking about? Lesson of the week: don't let Callum cheap out on ammo. If you're going major, just shoot match ammo. What? When did I cheap out? Sorry, the choice of ammunition had nothing to do with me. At no point did you say I want to shoot match ammo. At no point did you say I don't like the look of that ammo. At no point did you say I want to source the ammunition myself. Somebody offered to supply it. I said, that seems like a good option. You agreed. We paid for it. And it turned out to be shit. That's not my fault. I didn't, I would have had no problem if it was 3 times the price, but we knew it would meet Power Factor. We would have paid for it. Anyway, I'm going to sabotage you on Sunday. Paul, what's a Christmas bonus? Oh, he went there. For those of you that don't realise, I'm not just specifically laying into Paul. Well, I am, but Paul does work at a Magload, which I think if that's correct, means that you work for me. Yeah. So in terms of what's a Christmas bonus, I don't know. Maybe having paid leave in addition to your annual leave, which we do not monitor or tally, just to get that one in there, to go and shoot a level 4 handgun match that was fully paid for by the company. I think that smells like a Christmas bonus to me. I might be wrong there. I mean, please, anybody else in the chat, does your employer give you time off in addition to your annual leave, pay for your accommodation, pay for your flights, pay for your ammunition, and pay for a week of eating in a selection of top-tier American establishments? Please, I will wait. I will wait for the abundance of people that work for a company that does that. No, I thought not. He's getting a little. You're getting a little bit too big for your boots. I'd almost say you got minor feet and some major boots, boy. But it wasn't at Christmas. Semantics. Xmas bonus Haribo. That's happening now. Everyone's going to be handed their letters, and yours is going to be a bit squishy. I'm very lucky, I know. Yes, so zip it. Black Guinea Pig, have you been buying parts for future planned guns? Optic stocks. I have everything needed for a straight pull AR except the straight pull AR. When you say have you been buying parts for future planned guns, we mean like while we're out in the States, or I don't know. I mean, if you're asking if right, we can get anything you need, and we usually have everything you need. So if there's anything we can help with, let us know. Just checked practice score competition. If you were in standard, you'd have got 55%. Yeah, but I wasn't shooting in standard. I wasn't using a standard gun. That's like saying somebody that shoots in standard and mini rifle. Oh well, if you would have been in open, you would have been 50% of everyone. Yeah, it sort of has something to do with the fact that, you know, with standard, you know, with production, there's various hindrances, and it's a little bit harder. Like, you know, a CZ Shadow 2 is a pretty nice gun. I got to know it quite well, and it shot fairly well. It is not an STI 2011. Like, there's just no comparison. Like, on the price, on the performance, on the shootability. You know, plus, if I was shooting standard in minor, if I had chosen to shoot standard in minor, you wouldn't know what that feels like, Paul. I would have also had a larger capacity magazine. So, again, it's apples and oranges. You can't compare them. That's what I'm sticking to anyway. Yes, but Black Guinea Pig. Yes, I understand why your employer does that. It is sort of the requirement of the job. So one person in the stream gets paid to shoot. My STI 2011 had more recoil in minor. You were shooting the same capacity, but we weren't shooting the same division. Doesn't apples and oranges. Anyway, it's you and Connors that always says never look overall. Like, looking overall on the scores is just pointless. So it's pointless, meaningless. You didn't beat me. You didn't beat me. Didn't happen. You weren't shooting production. You'll never know. Richard Clifton can say he beat me. That I won't deny. He beat me because he also shot production. You were shooting off in your own little minor, major, standard, non-standard, little fairyland. You know, the real men were in production. Or at least you weren't shooting production optics. Like, you know, you drew the line there. A company I work for last asked me to work overtime on Christmas. Yeah, Paul, take note. Any news on the bell end who tried to get pump action shotguns banned? I won't mention his name. He doesn't deserve that privilege. Has that law been binned for good? And has he been put back in his box? Initially, he was put back in the box. This for those of you that don't know, the MP for the Kiam area, the Kiam constituency, or the constituency that Kiam falls under, basically never let a good mass shooting go to waste in terms of a politician's furtherance of their career, seized the opportunity to pull in a motion and table a law to have pump action shotguns banned, so not semi-autos, which are legal here, just pump actions, and also tie it in with a load of like hate speech crime and, you know, the whole incel thing and further laws on that. And it was just like, even like, you know you've messed up, you know, when the law, you know, the firearms law, the further restrictive firearms law you have proposed is completely idiotic, when the other members of Parliament basically laugh at you, right? Like, Parliament and the Home Office don't really need an excuse to pass more laws and restrictions. So when they shoot one down in flames, yeah, you know you've messed up there. And the main reason it was so laughable was because it was literally, well, sorry, what about the semi-autos? This is specifically about pump actions. Yes. You're not interested in semi-autos? No. Why pump actions? Well, you used a pump action. Okay, but then next time they could use a semi-auto. But you don't want to ban those? No. So this is just completely meaningless. It's virtue signaling and the furtherance of a politician's career. Like, that's exactly what we saw with Dunblane and, what's her name? Jill Marshall Andrews, who's the head of the gun control network. Her husband at the time was an MP, and they jumped on that bandwagon, and she's built a fairly good career for herself out of it. And, you know, I think it really did boost her husband's career overall. So it's just sickening. And I think even Parliament this time saw what this guy was doing, and it was just laughable. It was, you know, bashed together at the last minute, and it just was absolutely nonsensical. Even for firearms law, it was nonsensical. But yeah, in terms of where it's going, it does have a second reading coming up. I think they called it Keeham's Law. Here we go. So last update, 11th of August. I think we might have covered this. Yeah, so it's called Keeham's Law. Keeham's Law was laid out in Parliament back in March 2022. The official titled Firearms and Hate Crime Bill would do various things. The bill has already passed its first reading, with the second reading scheduled for Friday the 25th of November. Other local MPs supported the bill, of course they would. So ban the keeping of pump action firearms in homes. So it's not even like necessarily banning them, it's just you're not allowed to keep a pump action shotgun at home, but you'll still be able to keep your semi-autos at home. Create a legal requirement for concerns about an individual's mental health to be shared with police if they have a gun. That's already a thing. Make violent misogyny a crime. I think anything violent is a crime. like violent misogyny. No, just violence. Like, you don't have to give it another box. You don't have to. Well, that's violent misogyny. Far different than you know, violent physicality. Like, just violent. Anything that's violent. You know, like, let's, you know, I am heavily dyslexic, so the dictionary definition of violent: using or involving physical force intended to hurt, damage, or kill somebody or something. So yes, yeah, anything that is violent by the definition is already against the law. You've got, you know, GBH, ABH, murder's a pretty big one. You know, and if it's something and not someone, then, you know, that's criminal damage. So, like, make violent misogyny a crime. Oh, Okay, make the final part of the bill will make violent misogyny a hate crime. No, it's already a crime. This will mean misogyny will become an aggravating factor when judges consider sentences for violent crimes. They've been violent. I'm sorry, I don't care. If somebody is violent towards somebody else, you can get in the whole thing about defending oneself and all that, but violent doesn't, can you violently defend yourself? I suppose you could. But anyway, somebody attacks somebody violently. Why does it matter why or surely the sentence thing should be based not on the reasoning for, but the damage inflicted, the damage caused. It doesn't. Why does it matter why? It's what the justification for. If someone's got their head kicked in, that's the issue. Not why. Anyway, you can sort of see why this didn't seem to pick much traction, because it's a load of utter garbage. But it does have a second reason. I don't know necessarily where it will go from there, but I will be keeping an eye out on it. Sounds like you and Paul need to do an Xmas work shoot of. Yeah, shotgun. That's the one discipline he can't beat me in. He's too small. You need to be a good shotgun shooter. You need some mass behind you. I have a shotgun shooter's physique. That's what I'm sticking to anyway. Yeah, we can have a shotgun shoot off. Fine. I don't mind that. But we are. This is, it was on the cards. I'm going to talk a little bit IPSC and sport. I know not everyone's interested in that, but it's sort of one of my pursuits and passions, i.e. magload as well. So this weekend is the Welsh Mini Rifle Championship, which last year was, I don't want to take away from any of the other matches and the effort and the work that was put in. They were all really enjoyable, as were this year. But the mini rifle at Llanbradach, the Welsh Mini Rifle Championship, was just absolutely insane. It was, I think, my favourite match overall of the year. Just my sort of stages, really fun stages, and it's this weekend. So we're all heading up there Friday. Connors is shooting it on the Saturday now. I'm going to be filming it on the Saturday, and then Paul and I will be shooting it, and we're in the same squad on Sunday. So far, technically, Paul has only beaten me once in mini rifle. It's because the other time I decided to DQ myself, which wasn't particularly advantageous to my score. So hopefully I can redeem myself. I did all right in the Welsh last year, and plus Paul is using the gun that is very much set up for me, which gives me a slight advantage. Which gives me even less of an excuse if he beats me. We do all three: mini rifle, pistol, and shotgun. Okay, we could do the Magload Inter Christmas work championship. No, I've beaten you twice. You entered the competition, and therefore I beat you, but I didn't finish the competition. So again, we never know. I was on an absolute stormer that day as well. Seriously, I was like some of the best shooting I've ever done, and then binned it. So that's this weekend. Should be a lot of fun, but bigger mini rifle news is that the mini rifle world shoot, which was meant to be held at Frostproof at the Universal Shooting Academy in Frostproof, which is where we were out for the Pan American Handgun Championship, has been withdrawn. So they were going to host it there, which I was looking forward to because it's a great place and it's like an hour's drive from like Kissimmee. Well, it was like 40 minutes from the range to get to Kissimmee, which, you know, for those of you that don't know, that's where like Disney World is and all the great places to eat and shop and stuff like that. So fantastic like opportunity, and getting out to Florida is not exactly that expensive. You know, flights are fairly cheap out to Florida, but they've, for whatever reason, not been able to hold it. Now, there were various talks that apparently the range was for sale. I don't know if that's true or not. I can't confirm that, but they have also just experienced a massive hurricane, as I'm sure you've seen. Like, Paul and I were incredibly lucky. The timing couldn't have been better. We literally came home and then what I think was something like $2 billion worth of damage was done by a hurricane. So yeah, we quite literally dodged that one. So yeah, it might be that the range is damaged. There were some concerns, or certainly some comments, about the drainage of the range, and seeing as it was due to be held in October, which is hurricane season and is a lot wetter than the September time that we were out there, and that was still pretty bloody wet. So yeah, maybe they've just gone, look, it's not a good idea for us to hold it for whatever reason. So it's not going to be held there in Florida anymore, which is a great shame. But I've seen that, I think it was the Czech Republic, who were previously in the running for it and got beaten by Florida or the USPSA to hold it. They've sort of said, well, hang on a minute, we were sort of runners up. It makes sense for us to hold it. Personally, I think the UK PSA should be putting a bid in. I think, for those of you that don't know, mini rifle, it's a fairly new discipline, right? So it uses 2.2 long rifle semi-autos. You have open and standard division, basically sights or optics or iron sights. It's basically a sort of a dilution of IPSC rifle for the UK, right? Mini rifle was founded here in the UK because we couldn't shoot semi-auto full bores. Now, fair enough. Like the Czech Republic have put in their bid, and they should be considered fairly. But we're better than to hold the first mini rifle world shoot than in the country that it was quite literally created. The country that needed to create it because they were no longer able to do full IPSC rifle. And mini rifle, it's a very fast growing discipline here in the UK because it's a lot easier to get into at the top level. With shotguns, okay, you need a firearm certificate for a Section 1 shotgun. You also need a firearm certificate for a mini rifle. The issue comes in that, unless you are an RFD, you can only shoot a Section 1 shotgun if you hold a firearm certificate, and that gun is on your firearm certificate. So it makes it a little bit harder, a little trickier to go and try it on equal footing with everybody else. That's why people usually start practical shotgun with a 2+1 with a Section 2. Well, you're massively disadvantaged, and that sort of puts people off, and it can be harder to get a firearm certificate. And sometimes they're able to get a shotgun certificate, but they're not able to get a firearm certificate for whatever reason, and it makes it a little bit more preventative. Well, mini rifle, anybody, there are an abundance of exemptions within law, specifically written, not loopholes, specific exemptions written into law, allowing 2.2 semi-automatic rifles to be shared. It is so easy for people to rock up to a mini rifle match and give it a go. It's also a lot less intimidating. Like, you say to somebody that's never shot a gun before, I'm going to give you a 12 gauge shotgun, and people think they're going to get blasted across the room. And, let's be honest, it's not that bad, but there is significantly more recoil on a 12 gauge than there is on a 2.2 LR. So it's a lot more approachable for younger shooters. It's a lot more approachable for female shooters. I'm not saying that ladies can't shoot shotgun, because there are some phenomenally good female shotgun shooters in the UK, but that initial apprehension is certainly going to be less with mini rifle. So, you know, at the moment, I would still say within the UK, our main discipline is shotgun. It'll be interesting to actually go through and compare the attendance for the level 3 matches this year, but mini rifle is certainly catching up, if not has already surpassed. It will be really interesting, yeah, to see the match attendances between the two disciplines. So yeah, it sort of only seems right that with the potential opportunity for the UK PSA and the GB region to put in a bid to say, you know, real shame that you can't hold it in Florida, but actually, first of all, out of the 6 IPSC disciplines, you know, you have handgun, you have rifle, shotgun, action air, mini rifle, and PCC. Well, we can't hold we can, as the law stands at the moment, we can't hold a handgun world shoot, we can't hold a rifle world shoot, we can't hold a PCC world shoot. So we have 3 out of the 6 disciplines that we can hold a world shoot for. For whatever reason, the opportunity wasn't taken up to put in a bid for the action air, which I think the action air world shoot, because it was due to be held in Russia, and we all know why that's not being held there anymore. So that was a real crying shame. I think, you know, we missed an opportunity there. But now we have another opportunity to potentially hold another world shoot. And a lot of the biggest issue is, you know, venue. Where would you hold it? Well, you know, Brian, who runs Pro Shoot and Lambradich, the Lambradich range, or the Pro Shoot range, where this competition is this weekend, he's made no bones about it, that he wants to turn that place into a centre of excellence. He wants to turn it into a venue that can hold level 4 and level 5 matches. So why not put the rocket up the arse of that range? I don't mean, like, you know, in terms of put the rocket up Brian's arse. He's doing everything he can as quickly as he can, and there has been huge progress made there over the past, you know, even just 12 months. But I think you strap a UK PSA rocket onto that range, you plough the money that is needed into it, there is enough time to turn that into a facility where you could hold a level 4, level 5, a world shoot competition. You know, it was due to be held in October 23. That gives you 12 months. And actually, a lot of people, oh, it hasn't got the infrastructure, it hasn't got this, it hasn't got that. Well, like, Frostproof didn't have a lot of infrastructure, right? It did have a building for the stats officers, but that's all it was used. There was a covered area, which was basically an open-sided barn. That's where gun check was, and the concession stands. Like, it really wouldn't take that, you know, and like toilets. Everyone goes, oh, you know, toilets at Lambradich. Well, it was porta cabins that we were using at the range. Plus, we were only there for 6 stages of the day. We were only on the range for 3 or 4 hours. How much more resource do you need? The biggest thing, I guess, at Frostproof is that everything was covered. Everything was undercover. For those that haven't, I will... do I risk it? Firing up Final Cut Pro while streaming is always an interesting choice. I can give you a bit of a sneak peek of the video. This will be the next video coming out, and when I normally say, oh, you know, it's nearly finished, like, genuinely, I promise it nearly is. Let me show you. Let's see if I can get. Yeah, so this was the. So excuse, like, obviously this is not how it's going to look. This you're seeing the real raw edit here. Paul, that's a really interesting frame. I think you might have pulled there. Looking lovingly into your eyes. But this, what you're seeing there, this is gun check. You can see it's a covered building. Let's go. You can see it there to the left. So that's not really like infrastructure. Oh yeah. The stereotypes are true. Literally risked life and limb to get that shot. So you can see, like, it's just a covered area that could be built. That could be built fairly quickly, fairly easily. The stages, there's not really that much infrastructure in the stages. It's just the bays. The infrastructure is the building of the match. I'm trying to see if I can. Okay, they did have a skills house. You can just see there behind the RO. Oh, there, go. Just behind it, every area was covered. I actually do have aerial. Here we go. So these were the bays. So you can see running down each of the bays, it is covered area. Now that is obviously in Florida, when you get massive downpours, is very important. And I'm going to end Final Cut Pro now. Before I think I've pushed my luck there. Streaming and editing, two incredibly GPU intensive and processor intensive programs. So it's all right, Mac. You can do it. You can do it. So yeah, basically you need to put covered firing points, build some berms, and maybe have some sort of covered area to be able to hold the world shoot there in Wales. That's all doable in 12 months. I know there's planning issues with Llanbradach, which I think most of which have been overcome. But what a big sort of, what's the word? If they're having issues with the range, like, how can you argue, look, we have an opportunity? Think of the commerce for Wales, right? What a good argument to have to build more infrastructure on that range. Why do you want to build this? We want to hold a world shoot. We want to hold a world class competition. The world champ. We want to hold a world championships here. Like pistol, like handgun gets something like 1,200 entrances. I think it was like 1,400 entrants to the rifle world shoot. I don't necessarily think mini rifle is going to be like up there with those numbers, but you're still going to get probably 600 to 800 people enter a mini rifle world shoot. That's 600 to 800 people descending on quite a small area and smaller economy, right? All of the businesses that are going to benefit from that, the hotels, and it's not just for a couple of days. You're going to have the teams that are out there for the week or two building the competition. You're going to have the people there for the pre-match. You're going to have people there, obviously, for the main match. So you're talking like a good, 3 or 4 week period at least, where you're going to see significant business in the local businesses. Uptick in businesses, pubs, restaurants, Airbnbs, hotels, B&Bs, taxi drivers, like all the sort of stuff that benefits from a lot of people descending on a small town. And then once this range is up at a level 4 or level 5 standard, then we have a range that is up to a level 4 or level 5 standard. It means we can hold regular level 4s. It means we can put in bids for a shotgun world shoot, potentially even hold an action air world shoot there. We then have a level 5 facility once again in the UK. Of course, we do already have a level 5 facility in the UK. It just so happens to be Bisley, and it just so happens to be run by the NRA, who, after their failed attempts to take IPSC away from the UK PSA, don't really like the idea of holding any matches and getting along with anyone. But that aside, this is a golden opportunity. Like, get the range up to that level, get it up to that standard, hold the first mini rifle world shoot in the country where it was born, where arguably some of the best mini rifle shooters in the world are. I don't think it's a stretch to say that, GB stands a very good chance in mini rifle. I think they're going to have a very, very interesting time competing with the Finns and maybe the Norwegians first. But there is some really good talent here within the UK. So, probably the best opportunity. Well, okay, shotgun. We also have a very good opportunity of having a British shotgun world champion. But we also have a very good chance in mini rifle. Like, imagine that. Imagine the first world shoot, first mini rifle world shoot won by a Brit in the UK. You know, like that would be huge. You know, putting the UK, you know, the UK, we're not, when we went out to the Pan Americans, it's not like we're necessarily seen as a joke, but it's like, shit, the Brits are here, but you can't have hangers. No, we can't, but you know, nature finds a way and all that. Like, what a nice statement to, like, yes, you know, we have a budding, talented group of IPSC shooters here within Great Britain. We can hold our own internationally, and we're holding world shoots again. Like, what a statement to the rest of the world that would be, and a representation and advertisement for England, Scotland and Wales, for the UK as a destination to come shooting, to a destination to hold world championships. They should be doing it. They should be holding it. We'll see how that goes. Unfortunately, the biggest issues with Lambradich range is the council's attitude towards the planning process. Yeah, again, I'm fully aware of that, but I think this strengthens the argument. This isn't, you know, it's no longer, oh, we want to do this for a little club. I'm not, you know, it sounds belittling, but you get what I mean. You know, this isn't just for a local club, right? We want to do this to hold a world championship. We want to put Lambradich on the map internationally. That, I think, is only going to add, you know, benefit into, you know, or that's only going to increase the chances of getting any planning applications approved. You know, why do you want this? Oh, for a local shooting club. Oh, why do you want this? To be able to hold a world championship in Lambradich. Like there's a much better argument overall. Of course, they, you know, no one really is affected by some people shooting on an old slag heap, so really they just need to get on with their lives. And the thing is, if they actually approved it, if they were able to build more bays up at Lambradich, it would help with the noise. It's like, you know, oh, we can't have that. We don't want people shooting there more. Okay, but the shooting that we are already doing and are going to continue to do is going to remain loud, because you won't let us build the bays that is actually going to mitigate the noise a fair amount. You know, but that's, you know, that's anti-gun logic right there. I've spent the last 20 years traveling the world working on Olympic and similar level events. Shooting gets great facilities in the rest of the world. Yeah. It's about time we had that, you know, we made the effort to have that level of facility. It's not going to be given to us, right? It's not like they're going to wave a magic wand and somebody's going to suddenly build us a facility that is capable of holding level 5 matches. You know, other countries have been incredibly lucky, like, you know, the centre out in France where they held the shotgun and the handgun world shoot. You know, that's a national centre, right? That is government funded, as far as I'm aware, or certainly had big government influences in its creation. We're not going to get that, so we're going to have to go out and do it ourselves. And if we're not going to go and do it to hold a mini rifle world shoot, like, when are we going to go and do it? Guinea Pig, are shotgun length issues not a challenge to host a shotgun world shoot? I imagine lots of other countries will have people shooting with shotgun with sub 24-inch barrels. Yes, that is a point, you know, because you can get a lot of these guns in 21 inches. Let's have a quick look. Benelli, Benelli USA shotguns. Shotguns by model, M2 series. Where's the speed? Best series? No. Performance Shop series. How do they not have the M2 Speed on their website? Super Sport series? Benelli EU. Right. I'm just going to pretend that I speak Italian. Concept Benelli Firearms. There we go. And we'll go semi-automatic shotguns, 12 gauge. Why is this like the latest gun and they're putting it right at the bottom? Seriously? There we go, finally. Speed performance. Oh, the SP. Okay. Makes it sound like the speed performance is better than the speed when it's the other way around. So, configuration. No. Interpage. That can't be. Is it 61 centimeters? Is that long enough? Why it's like just work in inches? 61. Is that the barrel in inches? That's 24. So the speed, by the looks of things, is offered only in a 24 or a 26-inch version. The thing is, actually, so you can see it in this picture, right? Having shorter barrels, I'm sure there are people shooting practical shotgun with shortened barrels, below 24 inches. However, there is actually less to be gained in doing so. I'm assuming this is the 24-inch version, and as you can see, like the magazine capacity standard for 12 rounds. 11 rounds with magazine barrel. So is that 12? Is that 11 plus 1 or 12 plus 1? I'm going to say it's 11. But anyway, like the shortest tube that you really want to be running on a practical shotgun is 10. Well, that brings it sort of flush with the muzzle. So what is the benefit in having the muzzle any shorter? Okay, you've got less weight, so it's easier and quicker to swing. But in terms of it being more compact and more maneuverable, the length of the gun is actually more limited by your magazine capacity. So yeah, the fact that the speed is only available, and this is Benelli's website. It's benelli.it. The fact that they only have 61 and 65, I think maybe that wouldn't be an issue. Regardless, in terms of local laws affecting the competition, this was one of the concerns or one of the presented issues of holding the mini rifle world shoot in Florida. Not forgetting that a gun or a rifle in America with barrels less than 16 inches is considered an SBR, which you need tax stamps for and this, that and the other. So this was a big decision in usually I do prefer much smaller guns, and obviously on a rifle having a shorter barrel does make it more maneuverable and and lighter and this, that and the other, and that's what usually I prefer. But I went for a 16-inch on the spec of gun that I use for competition, because the forethought of going out to America, going out to Florida for the mini rifle world shoot, you wouldn't be able to go out there with a 12-inch barrel. So the fact that it's potentially going to be held in Czech Republic now, maybe I'll get the barrel shortened. I'm sure Otto will be delighted, or just get a 12-inch barrel. Like you know, I think I'd recommend, well, it's what I'd recommended to a few people that wanted to get a gun build, potentially wanted to go to the mini rifle world shoot. I said, well, if you really want a 12-inch barrel, then get it, but make sure you've got a 16-inch as well, because if you want to take it to the States, you're going to need it. So yeah, like, you know, that obviously wasn't enough of an issue to stop it being held in Florida. So the fact that the out of the box practical shotgun comes with a 24-inch barrel, I don't think that's necessarily would be a reason that it would be prohibitive from the UK holding the shotgun world shoot. Or worst case, we just hold it in Ireland. Actually, that creates far more issues. Oh yes, that is a very good point. Box mag shotguns would likely be most effective. Yes, that is very, very true, because obviously they don't have the extension tube. I mean, who shoots open anyway? People that can't quad load. And personally, if you can't quad load, then I don't think you should be able to shoot in the shotgun world shoot. That's, you know, anyone can change a magazine. You know, it takes a special kind of person to quad load. You know. But yes, you're right, because of you know, effectively the box feds are built off of rifles. You don't need the tube. You can have a much smaller barrel and go a lot faster. So yeah, that would be an issue. But it would mainly affect the Russians, so maybe it's not an issue. Urban Space Monkey, congratulations, great to hear. It's always good to see people, you know, get interested in shooting, start shooting, get their licenses, start entering comps, and then to win. It's yeah, so congrats on that. I'm sure it goes without saying you're having some great fun at the moment. We can have mini rifles with 12-inch barrels, whereas many countries can't. Yes, that was, I think, what I was talking about earlier, in terms of why we wouldn't be able to go out to the US, because we're actually allowed. Oh no, is it 16 inches or is it 14 inches for the SBR? But anyway, you know, we are actually allowed smaller rifles over here with less faff. Well, smaller rifles, because you could actually make like a 308 into a 12-inch barrel. Don't know why you would, but you can. But yeah, overall, like, I don't think it's necessarily going to be a bad thing. It's in some ways it will be cheaper, and probably a little easier to go out to the Czech Republic for the mini rifle world shoot, but it would be a hell of a lot cheaper and a hell of a lot easier if it was held at Lambradach. That is for certain. Does the bid for a UK-based mini rifle world shoot have to come from the UK PSA as the regional IPSC body? Absolutely, yes, it does. The UK PSA is the GB representation for IPSC, or is the representation for IPSC and GB. Anybody else putting in a bid, it would just be like utterly meaningless. It wouldn't mean anything. They'd go, okay, who are you? Oh, we have declared independence from the UK PSA. You could have the Isle of Wight. If the Isle of Wight could break off, you could have the Isle of Wight Practical Shooting Association. We are independent now. Or Jersey or Guernsey could declare independence from it. Yeah, you know, actually holding a world shoot on the Isle of Wight, that would be pretty cool. I mean, the locals, they can shoot fast. It's the extra fingers. I apologise. I don't live too far from the Isle of Wight, so it's probably a little closer to home than I would like. Running PCC straight pull would be hell in the UK. Yes, it would. But you do have a manual division in rifle. This is, you know, we could have, actually, is there a manual division in PCC? So we saw it out in Denmark, and also the Rifle World Shoot. They use pump action rifles that we unfortunately can't use. But there were a few, some not exactly like our straight balls, but some degrees of that that we saw. So they actually got it past. This was the real crying shame. IPSC actually passed for the Rifle World Shoot that lever release and Mars would pass as manual guns for manual divisions, which was really, really good, because actually it would give the Brits a slight advantage, because with the pump, obviously you're disturbing the front of the gun. So okay, it's in shotgun it doesn't make a huge amount of difference, but when you're trying to take a 300-yard shot, it does create issues. Whereas a lever release, it's far less movement, and I would argue you could probably be quicker, or it certainly doesn't disturb the gun as much. And then Mars, well, I mean, yeah, it's quick, but I mean, with manual as well, you only have to put one shot on target. So actually, you're used to double tapping a target, so you just double tap it, bang, click, and you're ready for the next target, bang, click. So that would be, anyway, they changed the rules, so Mars and lever release could go into IPSC and manual division under rifle, and then of course they banned lever release and Mars. So all the Brits had to turn up with straight balls, which was fantastic. Just another reminder, hit that like button, because it does make a huge difference to the channel if you haven't already. If you have enjoyed the stream this evening, then please do subscribe, because we will try to do this every single week, and there is loads of content to come, I promise. But sort of on all that note, I think I am going to call it there. Again, if you want to join the ES team, only ES fans, I might change that name because I can't even remember it. Anyway, if you want to join Team ES, then you can now join the membership. And yeah, please like, subscribe, share, comment. But yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a busy weekend, so please do wish myself, Paul and Connors all the best of luck in our performance at the match. And I would want to extend a big English shooting and magload good luck to all the other competitors. It should be a really good match to finish off the year. I'm very much looking forward to it. And Daniel, I will see you. Well, we're going to be up there Friday, but if we don't see you Friday, we will see you Saturday. So yeah, everyone, thanks again for joining. It's been a great stream. Hopefully not all doom and gloom next week. There we go. Like, subscribe, and of course, as always, guys, I hope